This teaching is called Part 3 of the 4-part series. It's called The Wine, the Oil, and the Wood. Okay, it's an interesting title probably. It's all about the calendar. And its acronym, this is really corny, but its acronym is WOW. And so my goal is for, right when this is over, for y'all to be wowed, okay? Because, no, seriously, if it doesn't, then I'm sorry. But I want to start out reading a couple verses before we really get into this, because this is probably the most exciting teaching this weekend, at least in my opinion. The afternoon one, it depends on what you like, but this one is, I even got a little butterflies before getting back up here, because this is unreal. And so I want to read a few scriptures before we start. In Jeremiah 33, 2 and 3, it says, "This is what Yahweh says, He who made the earth, Yahweh who formed it and established it. Yahweh is His name. Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." Mark 4, 21 through 25, Yeshua says, "Also He said to them, Is a lamp brought to be put under a basket or under a bed? Is it not to be set on a lampstand? For there is nothing hidden which will not be revealed, nor has anything been kept secret, but that it should come to light. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear." Then He said to them, "Take heed to what you hear. With the same measure you use, it will be measured to you. And you who hear, more will be given. For whoever has, to him more will be given. But whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken away from him." We have a lot, and He's about to give us even more in the next hour and a half. Okay? And then my favorite proverb, Proverbs 25:2, "It is the glory of God to conceal a matter, but the glory of kings to search a matter out." So in Leviticus, how many feast days, appointed times, do we have in Leviticus, or that we know of? How many? 7, right? What's number 1? Passover. Number 2, unleavened bread. 3, first fruits. 4, Shavuot. 5, trumpets. 6, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. 7, Sukkot, tabernacles. All right. So before you pull up the slide, Corey, I want to just give a little introduction on the Temple Scroll. Okay, so we're going to read some out of the Temple Scroll, which is found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. We talked a little bit about it last night. And it's like a very detailed, it's more detailed Leviticus, okay, in a lot of its areas. It was believed to be accredited to Moses, okay? Scholars say that at least the priests said it was from Moses, and that it was given to the priests for the tabernacle and temple service. All right. So in Leviticus we have 7 feast days, but in the Temple Scroll we have 12. Okay. So you can pull that slide up, Corey. So let's look through these, all right? The Temple Scroll, these are your appointed times, all right? Abib 1, the head of the year, is considered an appointed time. Passover is considered an appointed time. It's number 2. Unleavened bread is number 3. The first fruits of barley, this is important. First fruits of barley, what we consider usual first fruits, is 4. The second Passover is 5. Shavuot, also known as the first fruits of wheat, okay, is number 6. That's Pentecost as well. Then number 7 is the first fruits of new wine. That should be one you've never heard of before. Number 8 is the first fruits of new oil. Number 9 is the wood offering. Number 10 is the day of memorial of trumpet blasting, or trumpets. Number 11 is the Day of Atonement. And number 12 is the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot, okay? So sort of two ones we've seen. It's not in Leviticus chapter 23 as a B1. We see that at the head of the year in Exodus 12. And then we see the second Passover in Numbers, which we'll talk about those in just a second. But the three new ones that we haven't seen are these first fruits of new wine, first fruits of new oil, and this wood offering, hence the title. Okay, just moving on, I want to read something from the temple scroll about the head of the year. Okay, head of the year. And it says in the temple scroll, on the first day of the first month falls the beginning of months. For you it is the beginning of the months of the year. You are to do no work. All right. Now, thankfully, I read this before the new year happened in spring, so I took that day off. All right. But it's actually a Shabbat. Okay. It's an appointed time that we're supposed to take. Okay. And this is what's written in the temple scroll. All right. Now let's look at the second Passover commandment. This is found in Numbers 9 through 13. Okay. And it says, then Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the children of Israel, saying, if any one of you or your posterity is unclean because of a corpse, or is far away on a journey, he may still keep Yahweh's Passover. On the 14th day of the second month at twilight, they may keep it. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none until the morning, nor break one of its bone. According to all the ordinance of the Passover, they shall keep it. But the man who is clean and is not on a journey and ceases to keep the Passover, that same person shall be cut off from among his people, because he did not bring the offering of Yahweh at its appointed time. That man shall bear his sin. So you have this situation of if this person is unclean because of death, or if this person is on a long journey. The second Passover is very elevated in the Dead Sea Scrolls because situations like that happened a lot. And they're supposed to come in and keep the second Passover. And, I look at this from a spiritual perspective too. A lot of us, missed our first Passover. We didn't grow up knowing this, right? And we had dead works all over us, and we were unclean because of dead works. Or we were on a long journey, right? And but now he's brought us back, and really that is the second Passover. It's the same sacrifice. It's just it's a month later. He's given a second chance, right? And so, that's just, some other stuff we'll maybe hit later on this afternoon. So before I move on, though, I want to talk about these Feast of First Fruits and just make sure that you understand that the Feast of First Fruit that we've always referred to is actually the Feast of First Fruits of the barley harvest, okay? It is specifically the barley harvest. So this is when the barley, they get the best of the barley, the first of the barley, and they bring it up. Okay? Then, 7 weeks and a day later, 50 days, you have Shavuot, which is also a feast of first fruits. It's sometimes referred to as grain or wheat, okay? But it's the wheat harvest, all right? So that's the first fruits of the wheat harvest, all right? And that's found in Leviticus 23, and Jubilee says the same thing, okay? So when we count, all right, we have to count inclusively. So 7 from first fruits of barley, which is 126, to Shavuot, which is 315, you count 7 times 7, and then 50, okay? This is something I didn't understand, is that in a Jubilee cycle, all right, I was always taught that you count 7 times 7, 49. The 50th year is the Jubilee, okay? And then year 51 is the first year of the next cycle, okay? So your Jubilee years, if we start at year 0, your Jubilee year is 50, 100, 150, and so forth, right? If you read the book of Jubilees and you read the temple scroll, this is actually how they count their Jubilees. Your year 1 is, you go year 1, you get to year 49. Year 50 is your year of Jubilee, but that's also the first year of the next cycle. Does that make sense? Okay, so when we count these first fruits, which we'll talk about in just a second, we have to count them that way, all right? So let's go to festival of new wine. Okay, and I actually forgot to copy and paste, so let's check it out up here. Okay, the first fruits of new wine. And it says, this is from the temple scroll, okay? It says, you shall beginning from the day when you bring in the new grain offering to Yahweh, this is talking about Shavuot, the bread of the first fruits, 7 weeks, 7 full weeks until the day after the 7th Sabbath, you are to count 50 days, then sacrifice new wine as a drink offering. Then the whole people, great and small, may begin to drink the new wine and to eat grapes from the vines, whether ripe or unripe, for on this day they will make atonement for the wine. Okay? So what is this saying? This is saying from Shavuot, you count 7 Sabbaths and a day, and you get to the festival of new wine. When you get to the festival of new wine, it's a feast day. You drink new wine, you eat grapes. You actually, in the instructions, because I'm taking a very small portion of it from the Dead Sea Scrolls, and in the instruction, the priest would actually lift up the grapes and the wine, just like waving of the Omer. It's the same thing. And so they would wave it before Yahweh, and everybody drinks new wine and everybody eats some grapes, okay? And that's essentially the Feast of New Wine in its basic instruction, okay? So the children of Israel are to rejoice. Yes, this is so awesome. The children of Israel are to rejoice before Yahweh, this being an eternal statute from generation after generation wherever they dwell. They shall rejoice this day in the festival of the new wine to pour out a fermented drink offering, new wine upon the altar of Yahweh, an annual rite. Okay, so they're commanded to rejoice, to drink new wine, and to eat grapes. Okay, eat the new grapes. Now, just letting you know, I understand because people think automatically, oh gosh, I don't drink alcohol, I don't want to drink alcohol, things like that. I want to stay away from that. Well, guess what? New wine, back then, it takes a little bit to ferment, doesn't it? So it's not a big getting drunk fest here either, okay? This is about literally drinking the very first produce, and it didn't have enough time to ferment, all right? Now, some of you may want to drink some real wine, stuff like that, but that's on you, okay? Y'all going to be drinking the older wine, okay? But you're allowed to drink of that harvest. Is taking in the first of that harvest for that year and giving it to Yahweh. So let's now look at new oil. Okay, the first fruits of new oil. Okay, so from the Feast of New Wine, it says you're to count from that day 7 weeks, 7 times 7 days, 49 days, 7 complete weeks, until after the 7th Sabbath. Count out 50 days. Then offer new oil from the places where the children of Israel dwell, half a hin from each tribe, newly extracted oil. After they, the priests, have eaten, they are to anoint themselves with new oil and eat olives. For on that day they shall have atoned for all the oil of the land before Yahweh as an annual rite once a year. The children of Israel shall rejoice before Yahweh wherever they may live. This is an eternal statute for generation after generation. So once again, we have another 50-day count, seven Sabbaths and a day from new wine. You get to new oil. And we being priests, we are to anoint each other, with new oil and to eat olives. This is something I'm going to have to overcome soon because I'm not a very big olive fan, all right? Yes, thank you. And so we got a little bit of time though, all right? This is the statute for the festival of new oil. Okay, now let's move on to the wood offering. Okay, the wood offering. And so immediately after the festival of new oil. So, by the way, just letting you know, just so we're clear, new wine, new oil, the first fruits of barley and the first fruits of wheat, they're all occurring on the first days of the week. They're all on Sundays, okay? So, because they're all 7 weeks apart. Okay, so then we get to the festival of the wood offering. And it says, and after the festival of new oil, the 12 tribes of the children of Israel are to contribute wood for the altar. So this is how it works. Day 1, which is Monday, okay, which is second day of the week, Levi and Judah bring in the wood to offer up. Day 2, Benjamin and Joseph, and Ephraim and Manasseh. It's actually very specific in the instruction. It says Ephraim and Manasseh when it talks about Joseph. They bring in the wood. Then day 3, Reuben and Simeon. Day 4, Issachar and Zebulun. Day 5, Gad and Asher. And day 6, Dan and Naphtali. So that full week, you have, on Sunday, you have the festival of new oil, and then the 6 days of the wood offering from Sunday to Shabbat, okay? And each of the tribes, each two by two, would offer up wood each day during that time. Okay, this now shows everything, okay? This is everything up here. All right, I know it's tiny, but what you're going to see is you're going to see your 4 head of the seasons, head of the months. That's in that orange color. Trumpets is in green because it's a Sabbath. We probably should have put Abib 1 as a Sabbath. That's my fault. But it's no big deal. Then you've got, obviously, we've got our spring feast, which we already know, or month 1 feast, which we've already looked at. Month 2, that yellow highlighted there is the second Passover. Month 3, we've already seen Shavuot. Month 4, that's just the head of summer. Month 5, third day. That's the festival of new wine, okay? Month 6, you'll see the 22nd day of month 6 is the festival of new oil, all right? And then the 23rd through the 28th is the wood offering. So the last full week of the summer season is completely filled with a feast or feast days, all right? And then 4 days later, we are in the fall at the first day of the 7th month and the Feast of Trumpets, all right? And then you'll see in the 10th month, that's the head of winter as well. Okay, so I know that's a little small, but we've got some of it zoomed up for you, okay? So I just wanted you guys to see that for right now as we start to journey through this. Yes, we have multiple downloads that will be available. So let's go to Numbers chapter 18, because after looking at this, I was like, well, okay, we got to find evidence in the scripture, okay, of some of this stuff, right? Because if we can't find evidence, then I can't really, do too much. But let's go to Numbers 18, verse 11 through 13. And now we're going to start really hitting some amazing things that just will begin to blow your mind. And so in Numbers 18, 11 through 13, it says, "This also is yours," talking to the priests, "the heave offering of their gift with all the wave offerings of the children of Israel. I have given them to you and your sons." Notice it says in all the wave offerings, okay? Wave offerings are offered up at first fruits, okay? "I have given them to you and your sons and daughters as an ordinance forever. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat it. All the best of the oil, all the best of the new wine and the grain," or the wheat, "their first fruits which they offer to Yahweh, I have given them to you. Whatever first ripe fruit is in their land, which they bring to the Lord, shall be yours. Everyone who is clean in your house may eat it." So this is giving evidence that there are wave offerings and first fruits of new oil and new wine that people were offering up. It doesn't give us dates, but it shows that they were giving them to the priests, which is exactly what the temple scroll says. Now let's begin moving forward to some good evidence. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 10. Nehemiah chapter 10. And I'm going to start in verse 32. I've got some of this stuff up here, but I'm going to start in verse 32 and read the full passage. It says, "Also we made ordinances for ourselves, to exact from ourselves yearly 1/3 of a shekel for the service of the house of our God, for the showbread, for the regular grain offerings, for the regular burnt offerings of the Sabbath, for the heads of the months, and for the set feasts, for the holy things, for the sin offering to make atonement for Israel, and all the work of the house of our God. We cast lots among the priests, the Levites, and the people for bringing the wood offering into the house of our God, according to our fathers' houses, at the appointed times, year by year, to burn on the altar of the Lord our God, as it is written in the law. I've never seen a wood offering in the Torah, but it says there's a wood offering written in the law at an appointed time. Continuing on in verse 35, and we made ordinances to bring the first fruits of our ground and the first fruits of all the fruit of the trees year by year to the house of the Lord, to bring the firstborn of the sons of our cattle, as it is written in the law, and the firstborn of the herds of our flock to the house of our God, to the priests who minister in the house of our God, to bring the first fruits of our dough, our offerings, the fruit of all kinds of trees, the new wine and oil to the priests, to the storerooms of the house of our God, and to bring the tithes of our land to the Levites, for the Levites should receive the tithes in all of our farming communities. And the priest, the descendant of Aaron, shall be with the Levites when the Levites receive tithes, and the Levites shall bring up 1/10 of the tithes to the house of our God, to the rooms of the storehouses. For the children of Israel and the children of Levi shall bring the offering of the grain, of the new wine, and the oil to the storerooms where the articles in sanctuary are, where the priests who minister and the gatekeepers are to sing, and we will not neglect the house of our God. So we see they're bringing those things in to serve in the temple. Now let's go, and this was actually the first bit of scriptural evidence I ever found concerning these feasts. And when it happened, I called John up, I called Stephen up, and it was absolutely amazing. I was working, supposedly working, and I was like calling you, and because you need to read this. So let's go to Nehemiah 13. Nehemiah 13. And we're going to start verses 1 through 5. And it says, on that day they read from the book of Moses in the hearing of the people, and it was found written that no Ammonite or Moabite should ever come into the assembly of God, because they had not met the children of Israel with bread and water, but hired Balaam against them to curse them. However, our God turned the curse into a blessing. So it was when they had heard the law that they separated all the mixed multitude from Israel. Now before this, Eliashib the priest, having authority over all the storerooms of the house of our God, was allied with Tobiah, and he had prepared him for a large room where previously they had stored the grain offerings, the frankincense, the articles, the tithes of grain, the new wine and oil, which were commanded to be given to the Levites and the singers, and the offerings for the priests. Okay, go a little further down, and it says in verse 30 and 31, very last part of Nehemiah, thus I cleanse them of everything pagan. I also assign duties to the priests and the Levites, each to his service, and to bringing in the wood offering at the first fruit and the first fruits at appointed times. Remember me, O my God, for good. Nehemiah offers some strong evidence for a wood offering, correct? Okay, and we see some first fruits as well. Now I want to go to Hosea chapter 2. And whenever I saw this, I got pretty emotional reading it whenever I saw it in this light, okay? And I'm going to start in verse 4, and we'll just take a look. We'll just go through it. I've only got a few verses on the screen, but we'll just go through it. And we know that Hosea is written to Israel, the northern kingdom, and so we know how important this book is, especially for us. It says, I will not have mercy on her children, for they are the children of harlotry. For their mother has played the harlot. She who conceived them has behaved shamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers, who will give me bread and my water, my wool and my linen, my oil and my drink. Therefore, behold, I will hedge up your way with thorns and wall her in, so that she cannot find her paths. She will chase her lovers, but not overtake them. Yes, she will seek them, but not find them. Then she will say, I will go and return to my first husband, for then it was better for me than now. For she did not know that I gave her grain, new wine, and oil, and multiplied her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. Therefore, I will return and take away my grain or my wheat, same word, in its time, and my new wine in its season. That word for season is moed. And I will take back my wool and my linen given to cover her nakedness. Now I will uncover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and no one shall deliver her from my hand. I will also cause her mirth to cease, her feast days. And this part where it says her feast days, that's actually the Hags, so the three pilgrimage feast days, her head of the months, her Sabbaths, and all of her Moedim, her appointed times. All 4 categories, gone. And we know that that's true. That happened, right? That's in verse 11. Let's skip to 14. Then it says, and think about the context of last night as well. Therefore, behold, I will allure her, will bring her into the wilderness and speak comfort to her. I will give her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of hope. She shall sing there, as in the days of her youth, as in the days when she came up from the land of Egypt. And it shall be in that day, says the Lord, that you will call me my husband and no longer call me my master. For I will take from her mouth the names of the Baals, and they shall be remembered by their name no more. In that day I will make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, with the birds of the air, and with the creeping things of the ground. Bow and sword of battle I will shatter from the earth to make them lie down safely. We know that that's what happened in Acts 10 with Peter, right? Verse 19, and I will betroth you to me forever. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice, in loving kindness and mercy. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know Yahweh. Now let's pay attention to this. It shall come to pass in that day that I will answer, says Yahweh. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. And the earth shall answer with wheat, and with new wine, and with oil, and they shall answer Jezreel, which means God sows. Then I will sow her for myself in the earth, and I will have mercy on her who have not attained mercy. Then I will say to those who are not my people, you are my people, and they shall say, you are my God. Let's focus in on this verse. I will answer the heavens, they shall answer the earth. The earth shall answer with wheat, with new wine, and with oil. You didn't have this calendar until the earth was brought forth the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1946 and 7 and 8. You did not have, I apologize. You do not have this calendar, all right? You do not have new wine. You do not have new oil. You do not have the correct dates for the barley or the wheat offering, grain. Okay, you did not have that until it was brought forth from the earth in the 40s in the Dead Sea Scrolls. They're not found really anywhere else. Okay? Let's move to Haggai chapter 1. In the second year of King Darius, I'm starting in verse 1, in the 6th month, on the first day of the month, the word of the Lord came by Haggai the prophet to Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and to his son Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, saying, thus speaks the Lord of hosts, saying, this people says, the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house shall be built. Okay? So he goes on and he tells them to build the temple. And in verse 7, this is what he says. Thus says the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Go up to the mountains and bring wood and build the temple, that I may take pleasure in it and be glorified, says the Lord. You looked for much, but indeed it came to little. And when you brought it home, I blew it away. Why, says the Lord of hosts? Because of my house that is in ruins. While every one of you runs to his own house, therefore the heavens above you withhold the dew, the earth withholds its fruit. For I called a drought on the land and on the mountains, on the wheat and the new wine and the oil, on whatever the ground brings forth, on men and livestock, and on all the labor of your hands. So he tells them, go get wood and bring it to build the temple. So this is the time Israel's coming back. A lot of stuff has been lost. A lot of stuff's just crazy. He says, bring it back in. So they're going to get a wood to build the temple, a wood offering for the temple, right? So let's go now to verse 12. Skip down. Then Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, with all the remnant of the people, obeyed the voice of the Lord their God and the words of Haggai the prophet, as the Lord their God had sent him. And the people feared the presence of the Lord. Then Haggai, the Lord's messenger, spoke the Lord's message to the people, saying, I am with you, says Yahweh. So the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, governor of Judah, and the spirit of Joshua, the son of Jehozadak, the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people. And they came and worked on the house of the Lord of hosts, their God, on the 24th day of the 6th month, in the 2nd year of King Darius. Now, what is so special about this day? This is the 2nd day of the wood offering, okay? And it's the 2nd day, and who offers wood on the 2nd day? Benjamin and Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh, all of Israel, okay? So you have, they're going to get wood to build the temple during the feast of the wood offering, specifically on the day that Ephraim and Manasseh, on Joseph's day, that they would offer wood. Okay? Let's go to Joel chapter 1. We'll see a lot more of the oil and wine and grain or wheat as we move forward. I want you to be able to see this. So you have the first fruits of new oil, and then day 1 of the wood offering, you have Levi and Judah. Day 2, Benjamin and Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. That's the 24th of the 6th month, which is the exact day that they started building the temple. Reuben and Simeon, Issachar, Zebulun, Gad, Asher, Dan, Naphtali. All right. Okay, so Joel chapter 1, verse 8 through 10. It says, Lament like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the husband of her youth. The grain offering and the drink offering has been cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests mourn who minister to the Lord. The field is wasted. The land mourns, for the wheat is ruined. The new wine is dried up, and the oil fails. Now, we can read this on a literal level, but I think the prophets speak more, not only just a literal level, but they speak on many depths, right? Joel chapter 2, verses 18 and 19. Then the Lord will be zealous for his land and pity his people. The Lord will answer and say to his people, Behold, I will send you wheat and new wine and oil, and you will be satisfied by them. I will no longer make you a reproach among the nations. Continuing on, it says, Fear not, O land, be glad and rejoice, for the Lord has done marvelous things. Do not be afraid, you beasts of the field, for the open pastures are springing up. The trees bear its fruit, the fig and the vine yield their strength. Be glad, you children of Zion, and rejoice in the Lord your God, for he has given you the former rain faithfully, and he will cause the rain to come down for you, the former rain and the latter rain. The threshing floor shall be full of wheat, and the vat shall overflow with the new wine and oil. We have not known about these feasts, and we have not known the correct days of Shavuot and first fruits until very recently. Verse 25, So I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, the chewing locust, my great army which I sent among you. You shall eat in plenty and be satisfied, and praise the name of the Lord your God, who has dwelt wondrously with you, and my people shall never be put to shame. Then you shall know that I am in the midst of Israel. I am the Lord your God, and there is no other. My people shall never be put to shame. And then the very next verse is what Peter quotes whenever it says, he will pour out his spirit on all flesh, right? Let's go to Jeremiah chapter 31 and see a little more of this, verses 8 through 12. And I think I have this as the Septuagint version, yeah, or it's got some of the Septuagint in it. It says, Behold, I will bring them from the north and will gather them from the end of the earth to the feast of the Passover. It doesn't say that in the Masoretic, okay? And the people shall beget a great multitude, and they shall return hither. Further on it says, And they shall come and rejoice in the mount of Zion, and they shall come to the good things of the Lord, even to the land of wheat and wine and oil and cattle and sheep. and their soul shall be as a fruitful tree, and they shall hunger no more. Micah chapter 6, verses 14 and 15. Yahweh says, "You shall eat, but not be satisfied. Hunger shall be in your midst. You may carry some away, but shall not save them. And what you do rescue, I will give over to the sword. You shall sow, but not reap. You shall tread the olives, but not anoint yourself with oil, and make sweet wine, but not drink it." Deuteronomy chapter 11. This is really cool. Moses says, and it shall be that if you earnestly obey my commandments, which I command you today, to love the Lord your God and serve him with all your heart and all your soul, then I will give you the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your wheat, your new wine, and your oil. Okay, now I want to move on to a book Steve was kind enough to buy for me and send to me. And this is the book right here, Michael Cayetan's The Role of the Solar and Lunar Calendars in the Redaction of the Psalms, right? And this was, you're looking for evidence. I'm looking for more evidence to just support all of this, right? And it seems like there's a lot of scriptural evidence. We've got it from the Dead Sea Scrolls. But I was looking for any type of historical evidence, and this was a huge key. And so thank you, because it's a big deal. And I want to read a quote from this book. And so what happens is Michael Cayetan, in his book, he quotes, and I'm going to say this guy's name wrong, but it's Saadia Gaon's book on the Hebrew calendar. Now, this guy, Saadia Gaon, he was a rabbi from like the 800s AD, okay? And so he's quoting on Judah the Alexandrian. So we got a guy from the 800s quoting on a guy from 100 BC. All right, does that make sense? Okay, and Michael writes, as for Judah the Alexandrian, he says that just as there are 50 days between the first fruits of barley and the first fruits of wheat, so there are 50 days between the first fruits of wheat and the first fruits of wine. And the first fruits of wine, and the first fruits of oil, there are 50 days. The oil offering, I skipped a line. First fruits of wine. And the first fruits of wine falls at the end of the month of Tammuz, and between the first fruits of the vine and the first fruits of the oil, there are 50 days. The oil offering falls on the 20th of Elul, okay? Now, the reason you've got different dates here is because Judah the Alexandrian is known as Judah ben Tabai, who was a Pharisee. We know what calendar he's using, okay? Tammuz, we know that he's a lunar calendar guy, who is a Pharisee who was persecuted by the Sadducee sect. He fled to Alexandria in Egypt and returns back to Israel around 76 BC. After this, he became the Nasi of the Sanhedrin in Jerusalem, all right? Head guy, right? And is known by scholars actually to be the founder of the Karaite sect of Judaism, okay? So this guy is saying 70-something years before the Common Era that there are 4 first fruits festivals: barley, of wheat, of wine, and of oil, okay? And he's got them dated differently because they're on the lunar calendar, but the fact that he even is saying they exist is a huge deal, right? So it gives 12 feast days, but if you add in the other 2 Rosh Hodeshes, the heads of the month, you get 14 total, which is 7 times 2. So I just wanted to sort of add these in right here and just sort of explain so you can see what's going on. In green here, I have the heads of the seasons, the Rosh Hodeshes, and you've got something I failed to mention before we started talking about the calendar is that the calendar, and all over Scripture, the numbers 3, the numbers 4, and the number 7 are everywhere. trumpets are. And we know Matthew writes about the 14 generations from Adam to David, and then David to the exile, and then exile to Yeshua. So that's just interesting. We see the number 14 come up quite a few times. Next, I wanted to just show the first fruits festivals. Okay, so the first fruits festivals. So we got 4 first fruits festivals once again. The number 4 showing up. Okay, and so we have the first fruits of barley, which is the first month, 26th day we've talked about. We've got the first fruits of wheat, which is Shavuot, 3rd month, 15th day. That's 7 Sabbaths in a day. We've got the first fruits of wine, which is 7 Sabbaths in a day after that. That's on the 5th month, 3rd day. And the first fruits of new oil, which is the 6th month, 22nd day, right? When you total this, and your first day is the first fruits of barley on 126, and you get to the first fruits of oil, it's exactly 148 days, which if you divide it in 2 is exactly 2 sets of 74, all right? And we'll start to see some chiastic structure here within the feast as well. Something else that's super cool is when you start from the first fruits of barley on the 126, and you go until the last day of the wood offering, which is the 6th month, 28th day. They're exactly 154 days, which is exactly 22 Shabbats, 1 for each letter of the Aleph Beit, okay? And we know that there's quite a few Psalms and even some scriptures that are broken up into the Aleph Beit as well. So that was pretty interesting. So now I want to sort of end on one last final point with a writing from the Dead Sea Scrolls. And it's about David and the Psalm scroll. And it writes in here, it's got all these Psalms and stuff, and it's even got more Psalms than what we already have here, but we've got this last thing, and it sort of gives a summary of David, and it says this: "And David, the son of Jesse, was wise, and a light like the sun, and literate, and discerning and perfect in all his ways before God and men. And the Lord gave him a discerning and enlightened spirit, and he wrote 3,600 psalms." And so about that transitional period, the Tekufa period, okay, that 31st day between the seasons. And some people call it Peguim, right? Yeah, Peguim. And so this day actually is considered, when you read some of the Dead Sea Scrolls and you read some of the more ancient Jewish texts, it's actually considered a day that like evil spirits would try to come out, okay, and wreak havoc, because you're transitioning from one season to another, and this is a day that, like, essentially they believe that the enemy was really coming after him. So David writes 4 songs for these days, okay? And it's translated, you'll see this line in different Dead Sea Scrolls translated very differently. Some says demonic possessed, some says stricken, a little, and so it's really interesting, but it lines up with the 4 transitional days. But the thing I want to lastly look at is the 30 songs of the Rosh Hodeshes, all the solemn assemblies, in the Day of Atonement. So essentially the feast days, right? The ones we just looked at. And so Corey, if you'll go to the last slide, because what I wanted to do is I wanted to make sure, okay, well, if this calendar is right, we should have 30 days with all of these, to compose all of these, right? And so day 1, offering number 1, song number 1 is Head of the Year, okay? Then you've got 7 days of Passover and unleavened bread. Okay. which is days 2 through 8. Then the first fruits of barley gets you to 9. 9 songs. Shavuot, or the first fruits of wheat, gets you to 10. The head of summer gets you to 11. The first fruits of new wine gets you to 12. The first fruits of new oil, 13. Then you've got 14 through 19 songs are the wood offering, those 6 days. Then you've got trumpets is the 20th. The Day of Atonements is the 21st. Sukkot, those 8 days go from the 22nd through the 29th songs. And the head of winter is the 30th. And the reason we don't have the second Passover is because the second Passover has the exact same song as the first Passover, because it's all the exact same ordinances, okay? So it's exactly 30 when you put all of these together, all right? And so I wanted to bring this forward and show you guys, and as we wrap up, the cool thing is, in the summer, because now we have summer feasts as well, you have 3 Moedim, and then in the fall you have 3 Moedim as well. So you've got 6, 3, and 3, okay? And we'll look into a lot more with prophecy, because that's what the last teaching is going to be, because we know, well, how do these feasts fit in with prophecy? They do, okay? And we'll focus on that when we come back.